Hi everyone, I'm Tracy and thank you for tuning in today. So today's video is a departure from my normal content, my brush and beauty content, and it's about the Lahaina fires that I think a lot of you are aware of but may not be familiar with some of these details. I've been following the story very closely. Some of you may not know I was born and raised in Hawaii. So this event has it really hits close to home because for so many reasons. But today I want to focus on the facts and the details of the event and give some opinions on why I think this happened and why I think certain things were done. And so, okay, let me just start out with the information we have so far. All of these details are supported with documentation and firsthand accounts, interviews that I've listened to, and I'll list those all below. It mainly comes from these two interviews. One is with a local guy named Fish who witnessed certain events, and another one is of a family, a couple that has come forward and shared their personal experience of what they saw, what they heard, and some of the things that they are starting to notice that don't add up. And again, I'll link those videos down below. So on the 8th of August, a fire started. There's a little conflicting information about how many started. So it wasn't just one fire that started, but the one that has been kind of blamed for the destruction of Lahaina, that one started at 9 a.m. on the 8th and went on for days. Okay, and so here is what I have so far. And this is as of August 22nd. There have been 114 reported dead and over 1,000 people missing. So because it's the 22nd, this started on the 8th, I'm just going to have to state the facts that those people missing are unlikely still surviving. Just knowing kind of the geography, it's hard to imagine someone hiding out. There's really no like forest, and if they're out in the water, I highly doubt they could survive till now. So in Hawaii, there's a very, I guess, intricate siren system. So growing up there, I've heard the siren being tested. I've heard it being used during times of a tsunami or a hurricane. And none of those sirens went off during the fire at all. And the guy in charge of this decision, his name is Indaya, he said the excuse, this is the excuse he gave officially, is that he didn't sound the sirens, because he didn't want people to think that it was a tsunami and then they would run inland towards the fire. To me, that is completely unacceptable of an excuse. I think he was either ordered by someone to not sound the alarms, or he was told that this is what you say and this is the excuse you give. He has since resigned from his position. I'll put a picture up here of his face that I just feel like punching, seriously. So the fact that there were no alarms, no people, knocking on doors, telling people they need to evacuate, it's just very, very odd that never happened. Okay. Also, the fire hydrants did not have water. So when the fire department went to, try to put some of these fires out, there was no water. In fact, it wasn't until the 9th at 9 p.m. that military helicopters came and dropped hundreds of thousands of gallons of water on the fire. By then it was too late. The fire was spread too far to be contained. Another fact, and I have evidence, firsthand accounts. You can see that down below. I'll try to put a picture of the event right here. But the police were blocking the exit out of Lahaina from Front Street. So there are not a whole lot of roads that come out of Lahaina. Front Street is the main way that people will get into and out of Lahaina, and they were being blocked by police. And again, in the interview with that local guy, he was there and he didn't see any reason why they should have been blocking the roads. There was no obstruction, there was no danger ahead, and he wished that this police officer or police officers were taking orders, but there was no logical reason for this. So a lot of those people were later, well, those cars were seen burned, and I'm assuming that a lot of the people were trapped in their cars when that fire came along and ended up passing away in their cars, which is just a terrible, terrible situation to even imagine. So those things are, I guess, the main things that really caught my attention and really pissed me off, to hear that these things either weren't done or were done. And it just doesn't make logical sense. Okay. Some other things that I wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on is that when I was there, and I believe for the history of the state of Hawaii, there's never been a huge fire like this. It's just, you know, the air is too humid for fires to spread this fast and to get that strong. You know, it is a drier part of the island, but when I was looking up the climate, the relative humidity yesterday was 84%. It usually averages between 68 and 85% humidity in that area. The official excuse, which is starting to gain steam on mainstream media, is that because of the winds that helped spread the fire faster and made it stronger, and it was downed power lines that sparked the fire. Again, the power lines starting the fire, to me, doesn't make sense. In the history of Hawaii that I'm aware of, there've always been high winds, there've been hurricanes, they've had power lines for many, many years. And so, like, why now? That doesn't make sense. And also, as witnessed by the family that was interviewed, that night that they had to evacuate their house, they ended up losing their house. It burned. They were put up at a hotel, and they said they heard explosions all night. Not just here and there, but like thousands of explosions going on, and they can't explain what that was. They even asked the fire department to explain these explosions, and they said maybe it was like propane tanks or cars, but that also doesn't make sense because there weren't that many cars that exploded, and propane tanks are actually designed to not explode in the event of a fire. So what were those explosions? I'll give my theory shortly. Okay, and then this is huge, and this is something that really pushed me to make this video. On July 17th of this year, so just weeks before this fire started, there was a proclamation signed into Hawaii law by the governor. His name is Josh Green. I'm not familiar with, you know, who he is and what he's about, but he signed a housing proclamation, so changes to the law regarding housing in Hawaii, saying that in the event of a natural disaster, that he has power over these historical and cultural sites. So the town of Lahaina has extremely strong cultural and historical significance. I'm going to go over that in my next video. It was just a little too much to put into one video, but I'll be happy to go into that. It's very interesting. But Lahaina is just not any old Hawaiian town. It's rich with history, and it's actually considered spiritual land to the Hawaiians. So, you know, this is, to say that this is valuable land is just an understatement. Not only is Lahaina one of the most beautiful towns in the world, it's, you know, the beaches are calm. It's just a perfect place to develop if you wanted to put up, you know, multi-million-dollar mansions or resorts. So it's a very special town, especially to those of you or those of us who are from Hawaii. We all know of the town and are interested in preserving the historical sections of Lahaina. But there was a law that allows the governor to bypass any codes or permits or rules about how to handle historical sites. So if this is deemed a natural disaster, the governor can pretty much build or do whatever he wants to those properties. Why do I think this fire happened the way it did? And this is not going to be an opinion shared by a whole lot of people. This is just my opinion, but I strongly feel that this fire was started intentionally. And I'll go as far as to say I feel like there was a concerted effort to prevent people from evacuating and thus leading to their death, because this land is so valuable. And there wasn't really a way around it. The people who have lived in this area and the native Hawaiians that still reside there feel very strongly about preserving this land, preserving the historical sites, and there were many legal action. There are a lot of legal actions to keep Lahaina the way it always was, to preserve the town the way that it always has been. So very little development happened, especially in that area on Front Street and surrounding Front Street. I do think there is going to be a land grab to claim the land that has been burned. Oh, something else that's also adding to the, I guess, frustrations of this whole thing is when the federal government when they kind of drafted these bills to help the victims of the Lahaina fire. I guess FEMA didn't have enough money to do this, so they wrote a bill to give FEMA $12 billion. In addition to that, they added another part which was requesting $24 billion to go towards the aid of Ukraine. So the Ukraine war, which we don't even need to be involved in. The U.S. shouldn't even be involved in that war, let alone sending hundreds of billions of dollars. The $24 billion is in addition to over $100 billion that's already been spent on that war. That just doesn't make sense. Like, why are they giving twice as much to go overseas to a war where our own citizens are in need of help, desperate need of help? But people on the ground, and this is from people, I have a friend that lives there, and there have not been sites where people have seen FEMA or the Red Cross. They've been told that they're there, but if you want to listen to the interview about that family, they have not actually witnessed or met someone from FEMA that's trying to help with the relief. All the relief going on right now is from the community. Other parts of Maui, I think people from Oahu are probably coming to help. Also, President Biden gave a speech a couple of days ago, and he announced that they'll be giving each household $700 to kind of get back on their feet or whatever they need, which is extremely offensive. That's simply not enough money. And it's a one-time payment. It's not like a continuous thing. So I know for a fact that people on the ground there are completely offended by the amount that's being offered to them when they're sending hundreds of billions of dollars to the war in Ukraine. So another thing that I'm hearing, and this is also, as far as that bill, I'll put a picture of the bill and I'll put a link to the actual document so you can go for yourself and read those proclamations. There was a number of them, but it's just too much of a coincidence that that bill was signed weeks before the fire started. And all of these things they're just not adding up to being a natural disaster. So what do I think happened, and why do I think this happened? I think the ultimate goal for this fire, and I do think it was intentionally set, and I kind of went over why I think that was. I think it's ultimately to reclaim the land that has not been able to be claimed because of the cultural and historical significance of Lahaina. And this might have been the last resort. And I don't think there was going to be any other way to convince the residents to sell their land for development. And I know that sounds horrible, but that is my opinion. And I'll go so far as to say I feel like they try to prevent people from evacuating so that there would be less survivors of the residents, making it easier to reclaim the land. And that's really strongly how I feel. And as horrible as it sounds, it just is the conclusion I've come up with after learning of all of these horrible facts, these unexplainable mistakes, as they claim. If it were just one thing, okay, it could have been a coincidence, but there's just too many things that are not adding up, not pointing to the fact that it's a natural disaster, as they're calling it right now. And I just wanted to make this video to share my knowledge, my opinion, and get more awareness out about what's really going on in Lahaina. And please don't just watch mainstream media and take those facts as facts, or don't just accept those ideas as fact. It was important for me to share this, and hopefully you guys will watch this and really, think about things in a different way than what we're told by the mainstream, because these facts are just too hard to ignore. And I wanted to express the sadness that I have that this happened. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but at least one of the high schools were closed that day when the fire broke out. And it's understood that a lot of the victims are children and young people because they weren't at school. And a lot of them were home alone because their parents were working at that time. So if you can just imagine, they're saying 114, but we all know if you could do the math, with 1,000 people missing, there's going to be way more people found. Even if they're not found, they're going to be presumed dead. So the amount of loss and devastation and trauma that is going on in Lahaina is just too important, and it needs more attention than it's getting. And the attention that I want to shed light on is how this is not your average tragedy. There's a lot more to this event, and I do think there is a concerted effort to cover up the true cause and the true reasons that this fire happened. So I do want to go over the cultural and historical significance of Lahaina because it's very interesting, and that way it might shed more light on why I think Lahaina was chosen to experience this this horrible, horrible event. And please, you know, watch what you can aside from the mainstream. The couple of interviews that I have listed below are from real people with first-hand knowledge. A lot of them also have documentation, pictures and videos of these things happening in real time. And I hope you guys will really look into it and question the information that's coming out. And just look into yourself, look within yourself to make your own opinion on what actually happened. So that's really what I wanted to share with you guys in this video, and I'll be working on another one going into the history and what makes Lahaina such a special town. So with that, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.